I was almost killed by my ex-boyfriend. I'll be changing the names to protect myself. I'll start with the quick backstory. At the time of the attack, I was 19 and almost 20. My ex Gavin was 27. We had a big chow chow and a cat, the dog being his and the cat being mine. We lived in a 3-bedroom house, the layout being, you walk in to the right is the living room, in front of you the dining room, and off to the left is a kitchen. And down a longish hallway, we had the bathroom to the right, and the main bedroom on the end of the hallway on the right, and then the 2 other bedrooms on the 2 other walls. A few months before, we had allowed a friend to stay with us, Lacey, and it didn't end well as she was just taking advantage of us. The week leading up to the attack, Gavin had just gotten back from a work trip, which I believe was about 3 to 4 weeks away from home. The week he came back, he was completely out of it, not being able to even complete a thought. I'd ask or tell him something, and less than 5 minutes later, he'd completely forget or just not have heard me, just off in some other world almost. One day, I was very frustrated with this, as I'd ask for help with chores or for him to take the garbage out, only to be ignored. One day, he said that if it continued, that he wanted me to slap him. We'd gone out for dinner with his mom 2 days prior to the attack, and she was obviously very worried about him, as there were clearly something wrong. At the time, the only mental disorder he had, or was aware of, was OCD, in which I am now even more convinced that it's not what he had by any means. The day of the attack, we'd just gotten back from grabbing some takeout and were sitting on the couch in the living room. I'd been painting my nails and he had been playing Mario Kart. He looked over at me and said, "Lacey put a curse on my family." I was dealing with my own really poor mental health at the time, so wasn't really in a space where I could be forcing on his. I have BPD, by the way. I wasn't sure what to do, so I suggested he had hop in a cold shower, as it helped him earlier in the week to just reset a bit. He walked into the bathroom and was muttering to himself, and it just felt so off. I don't know how to describe it. I didn't feel safe. I walked over and asked him if I could call his mom for him, maybe invite her over for supper, kinda beating around the bush that I wanted her to come help him. He looked at me and just started yelling that all I needed was him. I walked out and started for the living room as I was calling his mom. He came out of the bathroom, naked, and started yelling at Ollie, the dog, to discipline me and attack me. Mind you, he was trained as my guard dog. At this point, I believe his mom had answered the phone and heard what was happening. He started to call me Lacey and that I needed to pay for what I did. I ran into the bedroom with my phone, his mom still on the line. He kicked down the door and smashed my head into the mirrored closet doors and threw my phone to the ground. He was screaming that he was going to kill me. I scrambled out of the bedroom door, trying to get to the front door. As I was passing the kitchen, he got a hold of me and wrapped my arms around my throat, again saying he was going to kill me. I remember looking over to the table and seeing my cat Sterling all puffed up. I have never seen him so scared. I was fighting not to go unconscious. I couldn't breathe. I clawed at him, just trying to get his arms off my throat. I remember starting to see black specks in my vision and thinking I'm going to die. What is he going to do with my body? He asked me if I knew what it felt like to be raped. This is the part where I'm not sure if he was actually out of his mind, as I had been raped before, and it was a year that month. I was very open about how that had been affecting me. He threw me to the ground and put his foot over my head, as if to stomp on it. This is the only time that I had seen his eyes throughout the attack, and they were almost lifeless, his pupils so dialed, you could barely see the iris. He was yelling over and over again, "Admit it, Lacey, you know what you did, admit it." I just started apologizing, doing and saying anything I could to make him happy. This seemed to work, as I got the opportunity to scramble to my feet and race out the door. I just wish I'd left the screen door open. I ran from house to house in nothing but shorts and a sweater in February in one of the coldest provinces in Canada. I'd gotten maybe to the second or third house before I heard Ali screaming. It's a sound I can never get out of my head. I just dropped to the ground, screaming and crying, "Gavin, leave him alone." I knew he'd killed the dog. At this point, a bunch of neighbors had heard me and came running to help. An older couple called the police and brought me into their home, not knowing if they were putting their own lives at risk. My parents were living in a completely different province. Someone gave me their phone to call my mom. She was out for supper with some friends, and I just told her Gavin killed the dog and tried to kill me. The police finally showed up after what seemed like hours. 5 to 6 cars, firearms out. They used the megaphone to tell him to come out with his hands up. He walked out naked and covered in blood. Once they had gotten him into the car, a police officer came to talk to me while the others searched the house. Shortly after, an officer came up and asked how many dogs we had. I told him 1 and a cat. I asked if Ali was still alive, and they told me he was dead in the bathtub. Gavin had killed him in the living room, then brought him to the bathroom, filled up the tub, and put Ali's body in it. I had asked about the cat, and they said they couldn't find him just yet. I was sure he had killed my sweet boy too. Sterling was the only thing I could think about. I went into a panic and was no longer able to give them any more information, as I was basically in the tunnel vision. Where's my cat? I want my cat. Find my cat. The officers asked if there were any treats they could use to lure him out and where his hiding spots were. They ended up finding Sterling alive, but scared, and they wouldn't get to him as he was too scared and attacked the officers. They had blocked off the worst of the scene, so they had me go in to get Sterling. As much as they did to block off, there was still so much blood, and the smell of blood and feces is overpowering. Sterling was in the bedroom, on the bed just crying. I scooped him up and asked the officers to find my vape. As I was walking out of the house, Gavin's mom had just gotten out of her car. She asked me where Ali was, and all I could say was, Gavin killed him. She dropped to the ground and started bawling. I just walked past her and put Sterling in her car and sat in the front seat, not sure what to do, as I didn't want to go with her. At that moment, I hated her for what her son did to me and Ali. To this day, I regret how I acted towards her. I had no right to be so cruel to someone who was also suffering. My mom had gotten a hold of my aunt that lived a few towns over, so once I was done with the officers, I was to go with her. Once the police were done doing whatever it was they were doing in the house, I had to go back in to get the clothes and such. They forgot to close the bathroom door. Luckily, I wasn't the only one who walked by. First, it was Gavin's mom. The sound she made was horrible. Eventually, my aunt came and I went with her. The next day I had to go back to the house to get my things. The police had gotten someone to take care of the body, but not the mess of the blood, and the body fluids, and the pee and poop. Half of the stuff I didn't know what it was. His mom's sister and I had to clean the house. Blood everywhere, a lot of broken furniture. His mom was kind enough to clean all my bathroom things and throw out the things that couldn't be saved. Unfortunately, I had African black soap. That night, I washed myself with it, and when I looked down, I was washing myself with a bar of soap caked in Ali's blood. 2 weeks later, Sterling and I were on a plane to my mom. The court case took 2 years, and I only later found out he had gone and loaded our guns. For the longest time, I did not want to know how he killed Ali, but when going through the evidence, an officer mentioned a baseball bat. Not knowing, I didn't want to know that he only got 10 months house arrest. To this day, 2 years later, he still tried to contact me, blaming me for not getting him help. I think the worst part is, I do blame myself, not just him, for not knowing to get him help, but also for not leaving the door open for the animals, for bringing the baseball bat into the house weeks prior because I was too lazy to walk it to the shed. In college, a while ago now, I got into a relationship with a guy. He was fine until he found Jesus. He quickly went crazy, claiming demons spoke to him, tried buying weapons from some shady friends we had, fantasized about how he would hurt people, and became incredibly controlling and physically abusive, nearly killing me a few times. Needless to say, I quickly got the hell out. After a few threats and really crazy behaviors, he left me alone for a while, and I thought that was that. I was heading to my dorm after a meeting one night when I decided to pass it and go to the student union, which was right down the street, to get some ice cream. As I passed the dorm, I heard steps behind me and I turned around. I thought I saw somebody with a white shirt ducked behind a big signboard. I kept walking, listening carefully. I heard something move and whip around again. There, a person, his size, my ex's size, staring at me from behind a tree. I couldn't see very well, but it really looked like him. I was beyond freaked out by then, but just walked a little faster. I'd hear the occasional footsteps and breathing behind me, but I didn't dare stop or let on that I knew someone, probably him, was there. I knew he owned a gun and would likely put a bullet into me given the chance he was that psycho and upset that I dared to break up with him. I walked all the way to the Union and got some ice cream and just sat there in the store eating, unwilling to go back out into the unlit street in case it was my ex, my crazy armed ex. I still had mustered up the nerve to head back when my phone buzzed. My heart just about fell out of my chest when I saw the message. It was some of my friends, a sweet couple. They'd been walking way behind me when they saw something that alarmed them enough to text me, "Your ex is walking around the street." They called me before I could even text them back. "Where are you? Your ex is prowling around here near your dorm. He was coming back from the direction of the Union. I think he had a gun. Was he with you? What's going on?" Panicked, I assured them that I had not been with him, but someone who looked like him had been following me and I was at the Union and was too scared to go back alone. They practically yelled at me to stay there and not to go anywhere and that they were coming. A few minutes later, they came running into the Union, breathless, eyes wide, asking me why he was by my dorm and what had happened. This was possibly what scared me most of all. The boyfriend, who is a black belt in karate and is never scared, looked absolutely terrified. He was coiled into some kind of fighting stance and looking around widely, afraid that my ex would appear with his gun. They told me they were taking me back to my dorm and calling the cops. They sandwiched me between them, and we walked back to my dorm as quickly as we dared, the boyfriend walking in front and yelling into the darkness that my ex had better not to try anything. I led the two of them into my dorm, and we went up to my room, where my roommate put in a frantic call to the police. As we peeked out the window, facing the street inside of the dorm, there he was, lurking in the trees to the side of the dorm, looking up at me. A streetlight reflected something in his hand, something shiny. I saw him tug at a .22. I saw he was carrying, so I tried to look away. But we locked eyes, and I saw something, this kind of rage in his eyes that froze me. At that moment, I knew he was really out to kill me, and that my friends and I had messed it up for him this time. He quickly turned and ran away through the trees. We didn't know whether he would come back and try to break in or something, so we called the police again, and lo and behold, they came in within minutes, officers with guns drawn, combining the area. They caught him in a few hours later, still with the .22 in his hand. He confessed he was indeed going to try to kill me if he had the chance, but he didn't want to take the pot shots at me with my friends there. Apparently, since I had broken up with him, I was given over to Satan, and he had the duty to make sure I died and went straight to hell. Of course, he went to jail and later to a mental hospital, and I moved out of that dorm a week later. I just couldn't live with that thought that he could break out and come after me again. I got some cop friends to keep an eye on my roommates until they could move out. I was never really the same after that. I was so afraid and paranoid for years and years. Now, I can be out and about without any fear, but I still have nightmares about him, staring at me through the trees, gun in hand and rage in his eyes.